Hi, and welcome to Planning for 2019 Like a Pharmapreneur. This is a business planning and strategic growth framework for pharmacists who want to build a business based on consulting services and focus on how to grow their business and attract the right customers and clients. So a little bit about this training program. We're going to start with session 1, which is the brainstorm session. In this webinar, we're going to set your big annual goals for 2019 by the end of this session. And then session 2 is our planning session, where we're going to go through the 7 quarterly strategic objectives that I want you to know and prioritize for each quarter of your business for 2019. And then session 3 is all about execution. So I'm going to teach you how to monitor your monthly metrics, how to follow a 12-week plan where you're doing weekly action steps that are based on your strategic objectives and based on and aligning with your big annual goals. So this is based on the core 4 of the Healthy Business Helix, something I've created for the Pharmapreneur workshop that I've been teaching, where if you see the bottom rung, you start with an annual big goal. The next rung is a quarterly strategic objective planning session. The next rung is monitoring your monthly metrics. And then the final rung is creating weekly action steps that keep you accountable and help your business keep moving forward. So let's get started in session 1, identifying some challenges and brainstorming ways to overcome them. So first, a little bit about me. I am a MTM consultant pharmacist. I was pregnant with this beautiful little girl in 2014 as a clinical hospital pharmacist when I suddenly heard the news that we were facing budget cuts and all my benefits were going away. So I quickly learned how to do MTM consulting and picked up several kind of odd jobs to fill my time until I decided that I fell in love with MTM consulting, and I decided that I wanted to grow that business. So that's what I've been doing now for the past 3 years, is growing a consulting business, learning as much as I can about MTM consulting and billable pharmacist services. So really the turning point for me was even before I lost my job. I was really starting to feel dissatisfied, unchallenged by my position, and just generally unfulfilled. Whereas when I started my MTM consulting business, everything really changed for me. I started learning about MTM and chronic care management and pharmacogenomic testing and just all these really cool things that other pharmacists were doing. It was kind of like my pharmacy bubble popped, and for the first time I was able to really look around. And that's my message for anyone out there that is maybe feeling either pressured by the job market or out of work or just really unhappy with their current position, is before you get put into a position like I was put into where I didn't have any other choice, start building something on the side. It doesn't have to be a consulting business, but I think the future is really in entrepreneurship, and it's in having your own side business type of thing. So it's really the gig economy, and you can leverage the skills you already have as a pharmacist, combine them with something else in a new way, and really create innovative products. So for me, it was just a turning point in my career that I began really focusing on MTM, focusing on building that business. And in the meantime, I started writing a blog and sharing it on LinkedIn and talking about all the clinical services that I was learning and trying to encourage people to go out there and try MTM consulting and try working in a physician's office and try offering genetic testing consults. Because what I was seeing is people just were not happy with their jobs, even new students graduating. And I decided that I could help these people more by creating online trainings, creating webinars like this one, and really sharing my story and sharing my message more so than I could any other way. So the problem is we get lost in the doing and we tend to veer off from our paths. So today, what I want to do is to shine a light on your path and help you create that path so you continue to follow that right path throughout the rest of the year. So a group of scientists in Germany decided to test the idea that hikers would circle back on their tracks without a map. And so what they did was they took 9 people and they put a GPS tracking device on them, and then half the people they dropped off in a flat forest, or actually I think 3 of the people they dropped off into a flat forest, another 3 in the Sahara Desert in Tunisia, and then they told each group to walk for a straight line, walk in a straight line, as straight a line as possible, for several hours in one direction without ever changing direction. So the people walking in the desert during the daylight, they veered off from their course a little bit, but they didn't walk in circles. The person walking in the desert at nighttime, well, they walked a straight line until the moon went behind some clouds. And then the researcher said once the moon disappeared behind a cloud, the person all of a sudden took a 90-degree turn, and then a few minutes later took another 90-degree turn. And that kind of showed them that without the sun to guide them, that these people really struggled at walking a straight line. And so they also looked at the people in the forest to see how well they did with, they weren't in a desert, so they had to maneuver around trees and objects and things like that. And not surprisingly, those people did much, much worse. And with cloud cover, they did, again, worse than anyone. So what they said was the people that were in the forest under cloud cover, they went in circles about every 10 minutes. That's how disoriented they were. And what was fascinating to me was the volunteers, they didn't actually believe when the researchers told them that they had been going in circles that much until they showed them their GPS route. And to me, it was like that was the big takeaway, was that people were very confident that they were going in the right direction, in the direction that they thought they should be going. But without something to guide them, they just got absolutely off track and had no sense of direction. So that's what we're going to talk about today. On a scale of 1 to 10, how are you currently feeling about your business or about your career or, your job satisfaction? Are you excited? Are you fearful? Are you being challenged at work? Do you enjoy your work? And I would love for you to think about or write down how many of you have actually written down your personal goals or your business goals or your career goals or your financial goals. So that's what we're going to do today. So I am excited about pharmacy. I have this vision of a clinical pharmacist being in every single physician's office in the country. I mean, if that sounds crazy, think about where nurse practitioners were 10 years ago, or physician's assistants for that matter. You'd never really heard of that as a career. And yet, now, today, there's probably more nurse practitioners in physicians' offices than there are physicians. And to me, we have so much untapped potential. We're just not good at sharing it. So what I want for you is more profit, more fulfillment, a more streamlined business for those of you that own a pharmacy or already own a consulting business or some kind of side hustle, a career that's aligned with your values. That is extremely important to me personally. And not only being fulfilled, but in forging this new path, in going where you want to go in your career, to be able to then turn around and help the colleagues who are behind you. That's really what leadership is all about, and that's what I'm hopefully training pharmacists in the Pharmapreneur Academy to be able to do, is to forge these new paths and then to turn around and share with other people, this is how I did it. So I'd love for you to stop for a minute and think about what are some current wins in your business or your career or your personal life. Relate this to whatever it is you want to relate it to. But think about, what are some wins that you've had this year? I, for one, am not very good at celebrating my accomplishments. My mastermind girls and I, we like to say that we are the most competitive women that we know, but we're not competitive with each other. We're competitive with ourselves. And I'm certainly guilty of that, and don't always take the time to stop and reflect on my achievements and my wins throughout the year. So exercise number 1 for you in this webinar is to create a look back list. So what I did is I sat down, looked at every single month of 2018, and tried to put what my favorite things or what the best things that happened. So what I actually did is I went back to my Google Calendar and I looked through it to see what all happened in my Google Calendar, and then I also looked at my paper planner to see where we were going and what I was working on at the time and who I was having calls with and all that stuff. So this is a great exercise if you're like me and have trouble sometimes stopping to smell the roses and enjoying some of your accomplishments. I think that's very, very important. And then on the other hand, I want us to get real about what are some current challenges in your business. For me, it's hiring staff members. So hiring people that understand my business well enough to be able to jump right in and help me without me having to train them on something like genetic testing or how to put together a virtual summit or how to put together a webinar or a website or whatever. I mean, that probably doesn't apply for most people, but we all have challenges when it comes to staffing, when it comes to systems and procedures and efficiency and cash flow. I know it's a huge issue for pharmacy owners, not having a financial plan in place. I'm going to talk to you in session 2 about financial planning and how, if you own your own business, to properly allocate your revenue to your tax bucket, to your owner draw bucket, to your operating expenses bucket, and to your profit bucket. I'm also going to teach you about marketing and the different strategies in marketing, how to position yourself, how to identify your ideal target market and your customer, and what and when to create new products. If you're like me, you want to create new products all the time, and sometimes the challenge is to kind of reel yourself back in and stay focused on your current products. But what I'll say is the real problem for most small business owners that I see is that you're too busy working in your business than really working on your business. You're getting calls on your day off, and they're asking you questions that are the same questions they ask you when you're there. Think of ways, how can you delegate these things? How can you prevent that? Write down, if say you're a pharmacy owner and they call you 5 times on your day off, start writing down what their questions are and see if there's policies or something you can put in place to keep them from calling you all the time. So what I like to look at this is as like the structure of a football franchise. So we're looking at the quarterback, the coach, and the owner of the franchise. So when I'm talking about being a visionary leader, I'm talking about being the owner of the franchise. So, okay, Tony Romo He's a quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. And so he is the talent. He is the decision maker moment to moment. He's not working on a strategy. He's not worried about anything but getting to his next first down. And sometimes I think this is where business owners get stuck, is you get stuck in the quarterback role when really we should be delegating that quarterback role to someone else. Are you the coach of the Cowboys? Jason Garrett. I had to look this person up because I don't know anything about him, but he is the strategy guy, and I know enough about football coaching. This is my brother's a high school football coach, and sometimes the coaches are actually calling plays while they're thinking about what play they're going to call 2 or 3 plays in advance. So they may have all 4 plays of the down thought out in advance, and then they've got all these different scenarios in their head. If we get the first down, what's going to happen? If we only get 2 yards, what's going to happen? If we get 5 or 8 or 9 and don't get the first down, what's going to happen? So they're always coming up with what the strategy for the next play is going to be, and they've got backups for their backups, and they've got all these possible outcomes that they've accounted for. The coach also decides who's on the team and when they are on the field. So this could be like your pharmacy manager, say. And then there's the visionary. This is you. This is Jerry Jones. This is the guy that owns the Cowboys. So in 1989, Jones purchased the Cowboys from this guy named Bum Bright for $140 million. Soon after he fired the coach, he brought in good old Arkansas boy Jimmy Johnson, and it was a slow start. They didn't do that great in the beginning, but they quickly built up what became the biggest football franchise of the 1990s. I mean, they won Super Bowls, and it just snowballed to where now the Cowboys have appreciated in value to an estimated $4.2 billion. So in 1989, he bought it for $140 million. Now, today, it's worth $4.2 billion. So, much of the league's financial success has been credited to Jones. In particular, he was decisive in securing Fox as NFC's primary broadcaster at a time when the traditional Big Three networks were trying to convince the league into accepting a rollback in television rights. So, I want you to think about that. Anytime your team calls you on your day off, think about what role are you serving in that team. Do you have people that you can delegate these questions to? Do you have enough help? Do you have the right help? Do you have the right people in the right positions? Who on your team is the Tony Romo? Who is the person that's in there day to day making the calls minute by minute? Who is the coach? I can't even remember his name. Jason Garrett. Who's the Jason Garrett? Who's the person that when something comes up, they go to that person? They're not going to come to Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones is out there making deals with Fox and turning down ABC and all this stuff. He's thinking 5 to 10 years out. He's not thinking what's the next play today. So thinking about, what your goals are. Is your goal to get out of the pharmacy 1 or 2 days a week to get some relief help in so you can go out and start networking with physicians in your area? Or is it to build multiple locations? Maybe if you're a pharmacy owner, it's to build a couple different locations. Or if you're an independent consultant, it's just to spend 1 or 2 days a week getting clients or talking to referral sources about what you can offer your patients. So I want you to take a minute to identify some challenges and staffing issues and maybe brainstorm some potential solutions. So for example, a consult with or a pharmacist who is an owner brings in a PRN pharmacist. She schedules all of her health and wellness consults on, I believe it's Friday, on that day that the PRN pharmacist is coming in to cover her bench, cover her dispensing role for the day. So what would this look like, and how would it work for return on investment? Or maybe it's, if you don't want to be the one doing the health and wellness consults or whatever it may be with the actual patient, what would it look like to bring in a naturopathic provider or a health and lifestyle coach one day a week, and having that person see patients in your pharmacy and splitting the revenue? So, say you charge $500 for one of your consults. Think about how much is it going to cost to bring in a relief pharmacist for the day, and how many consults do you need to do to make up for bringing that PRN pharmacist in? So I know a pharmacy owner in North Carolina who's hired 11 pharmacists in the past year because their clinical services in their pharmacy has absolutely exploded. So we're going to talk about this a little bit more in session 2 in the return on investment section, but also think during this brainstorming time about what is something that would streamline your workflow and allow you to be more profitable. Maybe it's a packaging machine, maybe it's a dispensing machine, maybe it's MedSync, maybe it's better inventory management that improves your cash flow. Maybe it's hiring another tech, maybe it's firing a tech. It may be that you need to shift some people around on your team. But I encourage you kind of stop for a minute and think about, if you had 2 days a week to work on your business, what would it look like? What would you do if you had 2 days where you had nothing on the calendar but to work on your business? So just what this would look like for me, I would probably spend about a half a day planning what I wanted to do. I like to batch stuff, so planning what I wanted to do for the next month. And then the other half of the day prepping for whatever videos or blog posts or webinars like this that I'm going to do. I mean, this webinar I didn't just throw together. I had to create the slides. I had to create the outline and the content, and set up time to record using my podcast mic so it would sound good, and then uploading it to the webinar software. And then, spend the other half of the day actually shooting the videos or actually writing my blog posts. And then the other half of the day would be reserved for maybe one-on-one coaching or spending time in the Academy forums, answering people's questions, or, making calls with potential other business owners. They could potentially be people who are interested in working with me, doing a workshop, having me speak at a national meeting or something along those lines. So, I really want you to think about, you are the Jerry Jones of your business. Where is your sun or moon or whatever it is, where is it guiding you to? You have to know where you want to go before you can sit down and make a plan to do this. So, of course, Jerry's not focused on winning games. I mean, he wants them to win, but really that's the coach's job. He's not focused on executing the plays. That's Tony Romo's job. What he does focus on to grow his business and grow his franchise is hiring the right people, putting them in the right positions, visibility and marketing for the Cowboys, user experience so that when the fans come to the stadium, they feel as part of a tribe. They feel like these are their people. So that makes them want to come back again and again. He's looking at new products and collaborations. He's looking at business growth and profitability. He's looking at operational efficiencies and how he can use things like technology to better improve the business. And then he's professionally developing himself. I would bet that Jerry Jones has done some professional, personal development work in his life. So those are the 7 things that I just went through that are really the 7 strategic objectives that we're going to talk about in session 2 of this workshop. So again, what would you use those 2 days a week for to grow your business? Let's take the next few minutes to really figure that out. So remember those hikers who were asked to walk in a straight line, and they could really only do so if you gave them some kind of reference point, like the sun in the middle of the clear desert, or being able to see the moon on a clear night. So what you need to create for yourself and your business is a reference point. This reference point is your big annual goal. So then once we know what your big annual goal is, you can prioritize your time and your actions to align with that goal and to get you where you want to be. So the differences between the quarterback, the coach, and the franchise owner is knowing how to identify opportunities, to delegate tasks, and to lead your team. So I'm going to give you the skills you need right now to be Jerry Jones. And this is how I'm going to do it. I mentioned the Healthy Business Helix. This is the core 4 rungs of the Helix. We're going to start with the annual big goal, and that's what we're going to talk about on this training session. The next 2 training sessions are going to cover the quarterly strategic objectives, the monthly metrics, and then the weekly action steps. I've created a business development planner that goes along with everything that I'm going to be talking about in this workshop, so that you don't have to be writing this down on a piece of paper that you're going to lose or whatever. I'm going to show you some of the interior pages of this business development planner so that you can see how we're going to go through the rungs of the Healthy Business Helix throughout this planner. So the very first page of the planner is about making your own personal mission statement and your business mission statement. So personal mission statement, this is about knowing your goals in order to use your time effectively and prioritize what makes you happy. So this first quote, to be a teacher and to be known for inspiring my students to be more than they thought they could be. That's Oprah Winfrey. If something's important enough, you should try, even if the probable outcome is failure. That's Elon Musk's personal mission statement. I want to serve the people, and I want every girl, every child to be educated. That is Malala. Then, once you've kind of created this personal mission statement, whether it's to be a teacher, to help educate children, to try, even if people think you're crazy and you're probably going to fail, think about what are your core values and what's most important to you. And then the business mission statement, it helps to create a goal for you, but even better, I think, it helps to create boundaries. So to advance the profession of pharmacy by helping thousands of pharmacists create millions of dollars in revenue through clinical services. If you guessed that was my mission statement, you are correct. And the way I use this mission statement is if people say, hey Blair, we really want you to come, consult on this pharmacogenomic test. What do you think? We want to build this platform. We want you to come take a look at it. Well, does it actually help pharmacists build revenue? No, it doesn't. So I'm going to say no to the things that aren't directly in line with this business statement. So, okay, for me, I have always, well, not always, so probably since about 2013, 2014, probably since I lost my job actually in 2014, have I been setting goals. And now I use a Trello board, but it was before, it was always just kind of like, a notepad app in my phone or something like that. So I actually had the idea for this business development workshop for female pharmapreneurs in November of 2017. It was part of my big annual goal in 2018. I actually planned to do it in May of 2018, but because life happened, it got pushed back to Q3. So I brain dumped my 2018 goals, recognized for the summit, increase revenue, increase email list, pay down debt on our property, save a dedicated amount of revenue in a tax account, go on a bucket list trip, read or listen to 2 books a month, and then find a supportive community of business best friends. I also created an annual big goal, which was the millions of dollars in revenue for pharmacy owners. So I also have these personal mantras that I have in different areas of my life. This is something, I think this came out of one of the books I read, and I honestly cannot tell you which book it was, but you're welcome to borrow this and make these your own. But these are different mantras in different areas of my life that are what I say to remind myself and to encourage gratitude in what I already have, and not get too focused on future goals, because that, as I mentioned, that's something that I do tend to do. And I also like to set a word of the year. So my 2017 word of the year was visibility. So that year, because I wanted to focus on visibility, I created the Elevate Summit and really get the message of clinical services out to a lot of people for free. It was super scary. I spent a lot of my own money to try to do it, but that was my main goal of 2017. In 2018, it was influence. So it was all about honing in on my message and what I want to talk about, and focusing particularly on the idea that we can essentially alleviate some of the strain on the job market by creating these consulting businesses and integrating more pharmacists into physicians' offices. So I've also put in the Healthy Business Helix, the business development planner that you can get on Amazon, I put this page, which is your 2019 big annual goals. So family, friends, fun, health and self-care, financial priorities, and then leadership or business impact. So for me, this is what my 2019, I use a Trello board, but I also have my goals written on my phone and in Google Documents and different places to remind me of what they are. So some of my 2019 goals, just some examples. I work when I want to and when I feel inspired to, and I spend quality time with my children. I spend at least 1 hour each day in my genius creating new content and helping my 400 Academy members build their businesses. I have a fabulous new office that taps my creative flow. I hosted a life-changing 2-day retreat for female pharmapreneurs. I enjoyed surprising my family with lavish gifts and gave generously as well. I had time and money for 2 amazing vacations with my family and friends. Now you'll notice I wrote those in past tense because I like to write my goals as if it's December of 2019 and I'm looking back at the year and saying, this is what I'm thankful for and this is what I had accomplished. So a few goal setting tips for you. I want you to pretend that the pen in your hand is a magic pen, and whatever you write down is going to happen. So what you write down, nobody else is going to see it. Unless you want to email it to me, then I'll look at it and encourage you to do it and cheer for you and hold you accountable to it. But I think this is important to really dream big, to come up with these big, scary ideas that excite you and frighten you and are something that could change your life. And if you knew you weren't going to fail, if you knew there was no chance in failing, that you have this magic pen and you're writing down this goal and it is absolutely going to happen, it's kind of like one of those be careful what you wish for things, because whatever you write down, I'm going to hold you accountable for trying to do it. So let's do this. Let's imagine that you're designing what your dream business looks like, whether it's a consulting business, whether you're selling makeup, whether you're a pharmacy owner, whatever your dream business is. I want you to think about and imagine, what role do you have in this business? Are you the Jerry Jones? Are you the coach, whatever his name is? Are you the Tony Romo? And what does your winning team look like? I mean, I need to go through this exercise myself because I'm still struggling with setting up my winning team. We've got the tech part covered. We've got the virtual assistant part covered. I'm trying out a new social media person who seems like she's going to be really awesome. So I'm trying to imagine what my winning team for 2019 is going to look like. And I want you to feel this and think about this. How would you be behaving differently if you already had this dream business? Would you be making different decisions, specifically career and life decisions? Would you be living in a different place? Would you be owning a different home? Would you be dressing differently? I mean, what would this business need from you as this new role, as this Jerry Jones in your business? And then I want you to do this exercise where you design your perfect week. So I mentioned mine, if I want to focus on 2 days a week that I work on my business and not in my business. I'm spending half of it planning, I'm spending half of it recording, I'm spending half a day talking to people, I'm spending the other half a day, social media stuff, which hopefully I can hand that off now. So think about, how will you batch your work? If you're an independent MTM consultant and you're doing CMRs, please don't tell me you're running back and forth to the pharmacy every other day to do these CMRs. You can batch them. Remember the pharmacy owner who sees her health and wellness patients on Fridays. She's batching them because that's what works for her. So does your perfect week look exactly the same every day? Or does your perfect week look like Mondays I do this, Tuesdays I do this, Wednesdays I do this? And what would you spend your time doing during this perfect week? And I like to think about this as myself. How would she, the Blair that I want to be, spend her time? She would spend it exercising. She would spend it in a state of inspiration and creativity and creating content that help pharmacists change their lives. And then when she's not in that creative workspace, she would spend quality time completely focused on her kids and her husband. So I want you to kind of think about that. What would that look like, and how would that new role that you're going to be in your dream business, how would that CEO spend their time? And then something I see that a lot of us get stuck in is mindset challenges. So, words, I think, really, really have power, and this is kind of why I like to write out my mantras to remind myself, about being specific. So, what would the owner of your dream business do to achieve these goals? You don't have to think about the how right now, but one vision I can say I have for 2019 is, if you've heard my story about my son being born last December, he has a very deep sacral dimple that looked like it's definitely on the spectrum of neural tube disorders. But I took folic acid. I didn't have any problem with it. Yet he was still, nearly had this neural tube disorder. So I tested myself and I found that I was homozygous variant for the MTHFR C677T SNP. And I see myself, even as a pharmacist, I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know that I was supposed to be taking a methylated version of folic acid when I was pregnant, either time. So I see myself talking about MTHFR and talking about gene-induced and drug-induced nutrient depletions on a national stage. I see myself clearly and can visualize myself talking about my story and sharing my story on a national stage to represent pharmacy and what we can bring to the table. And especially when everybody's getting their 23andMe, Ancestry.com, whatever, they're getting all these DNA results, but they don't realize that this data that they're getting can actually be used to make healthcare decisions. So that's one kind of example of what I have. So think about yourself. What fears would you have in reaching for these goals? I'll tell you what fear I have about if I'm going to be on a national TV show talking about MTHFR, and it is my weight. So that would be a fear and a mindset thing, might be like, oh, but I'm not an expert in gene therapy or anything like that. Well, you know what? No one is. So I just like to have the vision. Don't think about how it's going to happen, but what would it look like if it were easy? It looked like I'm going to share my story here and there, and then somebody's going to hear it and they're going to be like, hey, Blair, we want you to come on to, I don't know, Good Morning America or whatever, and talk about your MTHFR journey. So that's kind of the visualization that I want you to have when setting this big annual goal for yourself. So be very specific with your words. So if you want to live in a dream house, say live in a dream house. If you want to say buy a dream house, that's a different thing than living in a dream house. So there's a couple different things that could come out of living in a dream house. You could rent it. You could, house set or something. And then when someone says, oh, I want to have a 6-figure business or a 7-figure business, are we talking about 7 figures of revenue? Are we talking about 7 figures of profit? Because if you have 7 figures of revenue, like some pharmacies, but you only have 5 figures of profit, it's maybe not good. So I want you to imagine what you want. So if these goals are big enough, they are going to trigger some emotions for you. They're going to trigger fears. They're going to trigger excitement. They don't necessarily have to be realistic, but I want you to stop for a minute and go through your 2019 big annual goals. If you're looking at the second page in your business development workbook, it's going to say family, friends, fun. I want you to set a big annual goal for that. It's going to say health and self-care. I want you to set a big annual goal for that. Financial priorities, set a goal. Business and leadership impact, set a goal for that. So you can pause this and take a minute to just reflect on your ideas and what is coming up for you, and write down those goals, and then start this back up whenever you're ready to go to the next slide. So I hope you've written some stuff down under family, friends, and fun goals, under health and self-care, financial priorities, and business and leadership impact. So your goal by the end of this webinar is to have a big annual goal under each of these columns. In the next session of this workshop, we're going to talk about planning, and we're going to go through those 7 strategic objectives that I mentioned starting in Q1 of 2019. And if you see on the right hand side of the page, the top of the page says big annual goals, and we're going to specifically focus on business goals for now, because then you're going to prioritize your top strategic objectives for Q1 based on what those big annual goals are. So you can see the Healthy Business Helix at the bottom. You can see the quarter at a glance for 2019. And then you can see where you're going to put your goals. In session 3 of this workshop, we're going to talk about execution. We're going to talk about monitoring monthly metrics, so how you know that you're on your path to your goal. So for me, one of my monthly metrics is going to be maybe email subscribers, how many people are on my email list, or maybe it's going to be how many members there are in the academy. It's going to be people that like my page on Facebook, or it could be revenue related. Whatever it may be, it's going to align with whatever big annual goals I set, and hopefully align with the quarters that I prioritize each strategic objective in. So I also like to encourage people to pick one CEO day for each quarter and put it on your calendar. So if you see kind of in the center of the page, it says circle one day each quarter to commit to working on developing your business. So if you can't spend 2 days a week, I totally understand. If you can't spend 2 days a month, I understand that too. But you can spend one day every 3 months working on your business instead of in it. So if you want access to session 2 and session 3, where we go through the 7 strategic objectives, the monthly metrics, the weekly action steps, and prioritizing your goals for 2019, you can join the Pharmapreneur Academy at any time by going to pharmapreneur.academy.com and registering. You'll get instant access to the e-course at the Academy, which contains lessons 1 through 11, which I'm about to release lesson 12 on cash-based services, that take you from the very beginner stages of building your business in a step-by-step approach that gradually becomes more and more advanced when it comes to pharmacy services and billing, and ultimately getting accepted into a physician's office and the services that you're going to offer there. And of course, the lesson 12 would be putting together a cash-based service that you could either offer online or in person, and how to market that service and how to get customers for those types of services. And then also in the Academy, as a member, you get access to our daily forums. Those forums are where you can ask questions of me and the other Academy members. You can see all past questions. You can get access to all of the Elevate Pharmacy Summit interviews and all of the master classes and workshops like this. So if you want access to the sessions 2 and 3 for this Planning Like a Pharmapreneur 2019 Business Development Workshop, go to pharmapreneur.academy.com and register to get instant access.